The red hat and the parking spot. Honestly, people these days, Agnes muttered, her red hat a vibrant beacon in the midday sun. She gripped the steering wheel of her trusty Buick, inching forward in the crowded grocery store parking lot. They park like they learned to drive in a demolition derby. She'd been circling for a good 10 minutes, each potential spot snatched away by younger, faster drivers. The injustice of it all. She spotted it. A glimmer of hope. A space, albeit a tight one, near the entrance. Agnes signaled, a decisive flick of her wrist, and prepared to execute a graceful maneuver. She checked her mirrors, adjusted her grip, and began to angle the Buick towards her prize. Then, a blur of faded blue, accompanied by the roar of an overworked engine. A beat-up sedan, driven with a recklessness that made Agnes's dentures ache, swerved into the space she'd been targeting. Gravel sprayed, tires squealed, and Agnes slammed on her brakes, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Good heavens!" she exclaimed, her voice rising in indignation. She laid on the horn, a long, sustained blast that echoed across the parking lot. The blue sedan's driver, a young man with unruly brown hair and a sheepish grin, emerged, holding up his hands in a gesture that was meant to be apologetic but only succeeded in infuriating Agnes further. "Hey! I was waiting for that spot!" she yelled, rolling down her window. The red hat seemed to amplify her fury, casting a crimson glow on her already flushed face. The young man, Leo, leaned against his car, his grin faltering. "Sorry, ma'am. Didn't see you." He didn't sound particularly sorry. "Didn't see me? I had my signal on. I was clearly waiting. Are you blind, young man?" Agnes's voice was sharp enough to cut through steel. She gestured wildly with her hands, nearly knocking off her glasses. Leo winced. "Look, I really needed that spot. I'm late for a very important thing." He fumbled for an explanation, his eyes darting around the parking lot. "A very important thing? More important than common courtesy and the rules of the road?" Agnes scoffed. "I doubt it. You probably just didn't want to walk an extra 50 feet. He straightened up, a flicker of defiance in his eyes. All right. I admit it. I saw the spot, and I went for it. Sue me." Agnes narrowed her eyes, taking in his disheveled appearance, the oil stains on his jeans, the nervous energy radiating from him. "Sue you? I ought to report you to the authorities for reckless driving and general boorishness." Leo sighed, running a hand through his already messy hair. "Look, I'll move it. Okay? I'll find another spot." He started to get back into his car, but Agnes stopped him. No, you won't," she said, a strange glint in her eye. "You've already caused enough of a scene. Just promise me you'll be more considerate next time." "Considerate?" Leo raised an eyebrow. "After the horn concert you just gave me?" "Precisely. Learn from this experience. And perhaps invest in a pair of glasses," Agnes retorted, adjusting her own. Leo chuckled, a genuine, slightly nervous sound. All right. I promise. More considerate. And maybe an eye exam." He paused, then added, "Though I still think that hat might be a contributing factor to visibility issues." Agnes's eyes widened, then a slow smile spread across her face. "My hat? This is a perfectly respectable hat. It's striking," Leo conceded, his smile widening. "Very red? It's a statement," Agnes declared, the fire in her eyes replaced by a spark of amusement. "And a rather effective one, I might add, considering it got your attention." Sparks fly. Agnes wheeled her Buick into the grocery store parking lot, her eyes peeled for an empty space. Friday afternoon was always a zoo. She spotted one near the entrance, an oversized spot likely meant for families, but hey, a space was a space. Just as she started to angle in, a cherry-red convertible, driven by someone far too young to appreciate classic rock, zipped in nose first. "Hey!" Agnes honked, leaning on the horn. The driver, a young man with a mop of dark hair and a sheepish grin, emerged. "Sorry!" Didn't see you. Didn't see me? Agnes scoffed, getting out of her car. I'm driving a boat here, not a bicycle. Maybe you need glasses, Sonny. Sonny? He raised an eyebrow, his grin fading. Wow, okay. I actually signaled, unlike some people who think a horn is a substitute for turn signals. Agnes bristled. I've been driving longer than you've been alive, young man. I know how to park. You just cut me off. Clearly not, or you'd be parked right now, he retorted, leaning against his car. He folded his arms across his chest. Besides, parallel parking is a lost art with your generation. Oh, so now it's a generational thing? You kids think you invented driving. I bet you can't even change a tire without calling roadside assistance. I can change a tire just fine, thank you very much. Can you work a smartphone without needing your grandkids to set it up? Agnes huffed, feeling a blush creep up her neck. A few shoppers were starting to watch, their carts momentarily abandoned. She wasn't about to lose face in front of a crowd, or to this millennial. Look, she said, trying to keep her voice down. I need to get my groceries. I have a roast in the oven that's going to be charcoal if I don't get moving. And I need ingredients for a dinner party. He countered. So we're at an impasse. Unless. He paused, a mischievous glint returning to his eyes. Unless we share. Share? Agnes sputtered. Share this oversized spot? Don't be ridiculous. It's barely big enough for one of our cars, let alone two. Well, one of us could move. Or, he said, gesturing around, we could provide some entertainment for the good people of Oakhaven and continue this delightful debate until someone gives up. Agnes glared at him, then at the small but growing audience. She sighed. Fine. We'll share. But you're parking on the line. Wouldn't dream of it, he said, a triumphant smile playing on his lips. He expertly maneuvered his convertible as close as possible to the line on his side. Agnes, muttering under her breath about reckless youth and the decline of manners, did the same, leaving barely enough room to open either of their doors. As she squeezed out of her car, she muttered, I hope you brought a can opener, because your sardines are going to be crushed. He chuckled, slamming his own door. Don't worry, Grandma. I'm having steak. Unexpected encounters. Agnes gritted her teeth, navigating the labyrinthine aisles of Good Foods Market. Grocery shopping was a necessary evil, especially when her refrigerator resembled a barren wasteland after a week of neglecting all responsibilities in favor of finishing her pottery. She rounded the corner into the produce section, a mental list of vibrant colors swirling in her head: ruby red tomatoes, sunshine yellow peppers, leafy emerald greens. Oof! A solid wall of something collided with her shoulder, sending her canvas tote bag swinging precariously. A rogue nectarine tumbled out, rolling mockingly towards the feet of her assailant. Watch where you're going! Agnes snapped, her voice sharper than intended. It was him. Leo Maxwell. The parking space pirate. His brow furrowed, the guilt from earlier clearly absent. I was watching. You were the one barreling around the corner like a runaway train. Agnes resisted the urge to point out his own speed. Instead, she bent to retrieve the nectarine, dusting it off with more force than necessary. Clearly, good driving skills don't translate to good grocery cart navigation. Leo sighed dramatically. Look, can we just agree to disagree and go our separate ways? I'm trying to find decent avocados before they're all rock hard or mush. He held up a flimsy piece of paper. And I have a list to conquer. Agnes, now properly irritated, hoisted her own bag higher. Oh, I'm sure your list is far more important than finding ingredients for a decent ratatouille. She pulled out her own, slightly stained, notepad. He peered over her shoulder, his eyes widening slightly. Ratatouille? Seriously? That's ambitious. Agnes bristled. And what's wrong with ambitious? He held up his hands in mock surrender. Nothing at all. It's just, I'm making pasta primavera. And wait. Do you have? He squinted closer at her list. Eggplant? Agnes glanced down. Eggplant. Check. Zucchini. Check. Red bell pepper. Check. All right, Maxwell, what's your game? He unfolded his own list, revealing a remarkably similar collection of vegetables. No game. Just, apparently we both have a penchant for colorful, vegetable-based dishes. He tapped his list. It seems we share a similar culinary vision. A smile tugged at the corner of Agnes's lips despite herself. A frightening thought. They moved through the produce aisle, a strange, impromptu alliance forming. They debated the merits of organic versus conventional tomatoes, argued about the perfect level of ripeness for a bell pepper, and even exchanged tips on avoiding bruised peaches. As they rounded the corner into the fruit section, they both stopped dead. Hanging from a single hook was the last bag of Honeycrisp apples. They looked at each other. Then at the apples. Then back at each other. A silent battle of wills ensued. Then, Leo started to laugh. A genuine, booming laugh that echoed slightly in the otherwise quiet aisle. Agnes, despite her best efforts, found herself joining in. The absurdity of their entire interaction, from the parking lot to the produce aisle, finally hit her. All right, Maxwell, she said, still chuckling. You win. Take the apples. Absolutely not, he countered, still grinning. We'll split them. 50-50. A peace offering of sorts. A helping hand. Agnes cursed under her breath, stretching her arm towards the top shelf. The jar of dill pickles remained stubbornly out of reach. She stood on tiptoe, her fingers brushing against the cool glass, but it was no use. Blast and botheration, she muttered, jumping down with a frustrated huff. Why did they always put the good stuff where a body needed to be a blooming giraffe to get it? Having some trouble? Agnes whirled around. It was him. Leo Maxwell, the parking space pirate. She narrowed her eyes, instantly on guard. I manage perfectly well on my own, thank you very much. Even as she said it, she knew she was being ridiculous. Her shoulder ached from the stretching, and the pickles were essential for her potato salad. Leo held up his hands in mock surrender. Just offering a helping hand. I'm sure you do manage perfectly well, most of the time. But sometimes, a little extra reach is, well, handy. He grinned, that infuriatingly charming grin that had momentarily disarmed her earlier. She hesitated, her pride warring with her craving for tangy pickles. Finally, she sighed. All right. If you insist. But don't think this means I've forgiven you for the parking debacle. Leo chuckled. Wouldn't dream of it. He stepped forward, easily reaching the jar and plucking it from the shelf. He held it out to her. Here you go. 1 jar of extra crisp dills, delivered with a smile. Agnes took the jar, her fingers brushing against his. She couldn't deny the warmth that spread through her at the casual contact. Thank you, she said, the words softer than she intended. I appreciate it. Any time. Leo's gaze met hers, and for a moment, the noise of the grocery store faded away. She saw a genuine kindness in his eyes, a spark of something else. Agnes looked down at the jar in her hand, suddenly flustered. Well, I should get going. Lots to do, you know. Potato salad doesn't make itself. Right, Leo said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Potato salad. A noble pursuit. Agnes looked up, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. It is, actually. Especially when it's done right. She paused, then, surprising herself, added, I suppose I could make enough to share. Leo raised an eyebrow, a playful glint in his eyes. Is that an invitation? Agnes bit her lip, suddenly feeling very bold. Maybe. If you promise to bring dessert, and leave your car where it belongs. Leo laughed, the sound warm and genuine. It's a deal. He paused, then added, and for the record, I always park perfectly well. You just happened to catch me on a bad day. Agnes snorted. We'll see about that. But as she turned and walked away, a genuine smile bloomed on her face, chasing away the usual frown lines. The fluorescent lights of the grocery store seemed a little brighter, the sounds a little less jarring. Maybe, just maybe, this parking space pirate wasn't so bad after all. And maybe, just maybe, this potato salad was going to be the start of something unexpected. Apple pie and shared stories. The conveyor belt inched forward, a metallic serpent carrying Agnes's provisions towards the cashier. Jars of pickled onions, a bag of flour, Granny Smith apples, enough for at least 2 pies. She shifted her weight, the arthritis in her hip throbbing a dull ache. "That's quite the hat," a voice said from behind her. Agnes turned, her gaze landing on the parking space pirate. Leo. He was smiling, a genuine, almost boyish smile that softened the sharp angles of his face. "Keeps the sun off my head," she retorted, adjusting the scarlet felt. "And prevents unwelcome advances from pushy young men." His smile widened. "Duly noted. Though I wouldn't call this an advance. More of an observation." He gestured towards the hat. "It suits you. Bold color." Agnes snorted. "Bold is my middle name." The cashier started ringing up her groceries, the beep 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 a steady rhythm in the small space. Leo remained behind her, a comfortable presence instead of an irritating one. "Those apples look good," he commented, nodding towards the green orbs. "Apple pie. The best this side of the Mississippi," Agnes declared, a flicker of pride in her eyes. "It's a tradition. Started it with Mike Thomas years ago. Every autumn, without fail." Her voice softened, a hint of melancholy creeping in. "He had a sweet tooth, that man. Gone these past 5 years, but the tradition remains." 5 years? Leo repeated softly, his eyes meeting hers. "I'm sorry." Agnes waved a hand dismissively. "Water under the bridge. Though, the house does feel awfully quiet when the pie's baking. He always loved the smell." She paused, watching the cashier bag her flour. "Do you like apple pie, Mr. Maxwell?" "Leo Maxwell. And yes, Agnes, I adore apple pie. Especially if it's the best this side of the Mississippi." Agnes chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "Flattery will get you everywhere, young man." The cashier announced the total. Agnes rummaged in her purse, pulling out a wad of bills. "Blast it," she muttered, fumbling with a stubborn 5. Before she could react, Leo stepped forward, placing a 20 on the counter. "Allow me." Agnes bristled. "Absolutely not. I can pay my own way." "Consider it an investment," Leo said, his eyes twinkling. "An investment in future pie-eating opportunities." He turned to the cashier. "Keep the change." Agnes opened her mouth to protest, but he cut her off. "Besides," he lowered his voice, "those bags look heavy. Let me at least carry them to your car." He was already gathering the overflowing plastic bags, his arms full. Agnes hesitated, then relented. "Well, I suppose a little help wouldn't hurt." She straightened her red hat, a small smile playing on her lips. "But don't think this buys you a slice of pie, Mr. Maxwell. You'll have to earn that." An invitation. The scent of baking apples hit Leo as Agnes wrestled the door open, revealing a riot of color inside. Paintings, some framed, some leaning against the walls, fought for space alongside overflowing bookshelves and vibrant ceramic pots bursting with flowers. It was like stepping into a living art gallery, a stark contrast to the prim lawns and muted tones of the rest of the street. "Well, are you going to stand there gawking, or come in and have some pie?" Agnes asked, a hint of amusement in her voice. "It won't eat itself." He grinned, stepping inside. "Wouldn't want to deprive it of the opportunity." The kitchen was just as chaotic as the entrance, but somehow, it felt right. Warm. A half-eaten apple pie sat cooling on a wire rack, its cinnamon scent permeating the air. Agnes sliced a generous wedge and slid it onto a chipped china plate, handing it to him with a fork. "So," she said, leaning against the counter, "what brings a parking space pirate to our quiet little street?" Leo took a bite of the pie, his eyes widening. "This is incredible. And I wasn't pirating, exactly. More like tactically acquiring." He chuckled. Actually, I was on my way to a friend's. We're supposed to be jamming tonight. Jamming? Agnes raised an eyebrow. You play? Trying to, Leo admitted. Guitar, mostly. Hoping to make it more than just a hobby someday. Agnes nodded, her gaze thoughtful. I used to teach art. Elementary school. Drove them crazy with finger paints and clay. Retired a few years back. Miss the chaos sometimes. She gestured around the room. Now I just make my own. He looked around, really seeing the art for the first time. Landscapes, portraits, abstracts, a kaleidoscope of styles and emotions. These are amazing. You're really talented. A faint blush touched Agnes's cheeks. Flattery will get you everywhere, young man. Tell me about this music. What kind of stuff do you play? They talked for what felt like minutes, but was probably closer to an hour. Leo told her about his band, their struggles to find gigs, his dreams of writing his own songs. Agnes shared stories of her teaching days, the funny things kids said, the joy of watching them discover their own creativity. He learned that she traveled the world, sketching landscapes in Italy, painting portraits in Morocco, and volunteering at a school for the arts in Mexico. You've had quite a life, Leo said, genuinely impressed. Still having it, Agnes retorted, a spark in her eye. Just because I'm not chasing toddlers around a classroom anymore doesn't mean the adventure's over. She paused, studying him. And you, Leo Maxwell, you've got the fire in you too. Don't let it burn out. He grinned, feeling a connection forming between them that he hadn't anticipated. I don't intend to. A jazz club date. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, painting the sidewalk in hues of amber and rose. Agnes leaned against her vintage Buick, a swirl of charcoal dust still clinging to her fingertips. So you fancy yourself a bit of a photographer then? She asked, tilting her head. Leo, who had been fiddling with his camera bag, straightened. More than a bit. I'm aiming for renown, someday. He grinned, a flash of genuine enthusiasm. Landscapes, mostly. Trying to capture the way light dances on the mountains, the quiet stories etched into old trees. Agnes surprised herself by softening. There's poetry in that, she admitted, thinking of the gnarled apple tree in her own back garden, a silent witness to generations. I try to find the same kind of poetry in my sculptures. Sculptures? Leo's eyebrows lifted. I should have guessed. There's an artist's intensity about you. He paused, then blurted. Ethan's playing at that little jazz club downtown tomorrow night. Maybe you'd like to come? He shuffled his feet, suddenly looking much younger. Agnes felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sensation she hadn't experienced in what felt like decades. Ethan's club was dimly lit, smoky, the kind of place where secrets whispered in the saxophone solos. It was romantic. Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Maxwell? She asked, her voice laced with amusement. Leo's cheeks flushed crimson. He stammered, well, yes. If you'd consider it. He met her gaze, his eyes sincere. Agnes considered. This young man, who had moments ago been the bane of her existence, now stood before her, vulnerable and hopeful. She liked his nerve. She liked the way he talked about light and trees. She liked the way he made her feel, alive, and a little reckless. Ethan's good, she said, a playful glint in her eye. And I haven't been to a jazz club in far too long. She straightened, adjusting her red hat, the feather bobbing jauntily. Pick me up at 8. Leo's face broke into a wide, relieved smile. 8 it is. I promise to be on time, and to not steal any parking spots. See that you don't, Agnes said, but the edge in her voice was gone, replaced by something softer, almost flirtatious. She turned to her car. Until tomorrow, then, Mr. Maxwell. As she slid into the driver's seat, she caught his eye again, holding the gaze for a moment longer than strictly necessary. The engine roared to life, the sound strangely exhilarating. As she drove away, she couldn't help but smile. A jazz club date. Who would have thought? Music and laughter. The smoky air of The blue note vibrated with the soulful wail of a saxophone. Agnes tapped her foot, the rhythm infectious even to her usually stoic disposition. Leo, seated beside her at the small, scarred table, grinned. Enjoying it? It's unexpectedly good, Agnes admitted, swirling the amber liquid in her glass. The whiskey warmed her throat, chasing away the lingering chill of the evening. The band, a quartet led by a wiry man with impossibly long fingers, launched into a faster number, the trumpet now taking the lead. Leo chuckled. Unexpected? What did you expect, elevator music? Agnes rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged at her lips. Something less lively. I haven't been to a jazz club in decades. Well, consider this a reintroduction. Care to dance? He gestured towards the small, crowded dance floor. Agnes hesitated. I haven't danced in decades either. Then we're perfectly matched. We can be equally rusty together. Leo stood, offering his hand. She looked at his outstretched hand, then up at his face, his eyes crinkled at the corners with genuine amusement. Against her better judgment, she took it. The dance floor was a chaotic swirl of bodies, but Leo navigated them with surprising grace. He held her loosely, giving her room to move. At first, Agnes was stiff, self-conscious, but the music seeped into her bones, loosening her up. She found herself swaying, then stepping, then actually moving in time with the beat. Leo mirrored her movements, laughing when she stumbled slightly. See? I told you we were equally rusty. Agnes laughed too, a genuine, unforced sound that surprised even herself. It felt good, this lightness, this letting go. She hadn't felt this carefree in years. The music swelled, the trumpet soaring, and they danced, lost in the rhythm and the shared joy of the moment. Across the room, Ethan, the club owner, leaned against the bar, polishing a glass. He watched Agnes and Leo, a knowing smile playing on his lips. He'd seen a lot of connections spark within the walls of the Blue Note, but there was something particularly intriguing about this one. The unlikely pair moved together with an easy familiarity, their laughter echoing above the music. He caught Leo's eye and gave him a subtle nod of approval. Leo winked back, his smile even wider. As the song ended, Agnes and Leo stood breathless, flushed with exertion and laughter. I think, Agnes said, catching her breath, I might be sore tomorrow. Worth it though, right? Leo asked, his eyes searching hers. Definitely worth it, she admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. They returned to their table, the air between them charged with a new kind of energy. The band began a slower, bluesier tune, the saxophone crooning a mournful melody. Agnes leaned back in her chair, feeling a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the whiskey. She glanced at Leo, and he smiled at her, a silent acknowledgement of the connection they had forged on the dance floor. The music, the laughter, it had all created something unexpected, something promising. Unlikely beginnings. The walk back to Agnes's building was surprisingly comfortable. The initial awkwardness from dinner had dissolved, replaced by a light, playful banter that felt natural. Leo matched her stride easily, his hands tucked into the pockets of his worn leather jacket. The scent of rain-washed asphalt rose from the street, mingling with the faint, lingering aroma of the lavender soap Agnes used. So, Leo said, breaking the comfortable silence, I'm guessing you don't usually go on dates with people you steal parking spaces from. Agnes chuckled, the sound echoing softly in the quiet street. Definitely not. It's usually more of a curse them under my breath and circle the block situation. I feel honored then. He grinned, his eyes crinkling at the corners. To break the mold. They reached her building. The wrought iron gate stood sentinel before the small courtyard, a single flickering gas lamp casting long shadows. Agnes fished in her purse for her keys, the metal cool against her fingertips. Well, Leo Maxwell, I must say, you've been surprisingly pleasant. Agnes tilted her head, a wry smile playing on her lips. Only surprising because of our auspicious beginning, I hope? He countered, his voice laced with amusement. Agnes unlocked the gate, pushing it open with a creak. Maybe. Or maybe you're just good at hiding your parking space stealing tendencies. He stepped closer, the dim light catching the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Only time will tell, Agnes Blackwood. The air crackled with an unspoken energy, a tangible pull that Agnes hadn't felt in, well, she couldn't remember when. He lifted a hand, his fingers brushing lightly against her cheek. The touch was feather-light, hesitant, yet it sent a shiver down her spine. I had a really good time, Agnes. His voice was low, almost a whisper. Me too, Leo. He leaned in, and Agnes found herself meeting him halfway. His lips were soft, warm, and gentle against hers. It was a sweet, chaste kiss, a promise of something more, something unexpected. When they parted, Agnes felt a flutter in her chest, a lightness she hadn't anticipated. Good night, Agnes. He stepped back, a smile lingering on his face. Good night, Leo. Agnes watched him walk away, the sound of his footsteps fading into the night. She stood there for a moment, the cool night air kissing her skin, her fingers tracing the spot on her cheek where he had touched her. A slow smile spread across her face. She couldn't deny the undeniable spark that had ignited between them. Inside her apartment, Agnes leaned against the closed door, a sigh escaping her lips. She kicked off her shoes, the soft wool of the rug a welcome sensation against her bare feet. The apartment felt different tonight, somehow brighter, filled with an energy she hadn't noticed before. She wandered over to the window, gazing out at the twinkling city lights. A parking space pirate. Who would have thought? Life was full of surprises, she mused, a chuckle bubbling up from her throat. The universe had a funny way of throwing people together, of creating connections in the most unlikely of circumstances. Agnes ran a hand through her hair, a hopeful smile gracing her features. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something special. It was certainly unlikely. But perhaps the greatest connections bloomed from the most improbable beginnings. The thought warmed her from the inside out. She turned away from the window, a newfound lightness in her step. Tomorrow would be interesting.